Brown County Commission meeting order. Commissioner Sutton, would you lead us in the pledge, please? The pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Good morning. First item on the agenda, we have to discuss the property reconveyance resolution. This would be regarding the Solway property. Did we hear back as far as family members, is how this property is to be conveyed back?
What was your question, Doug?
Have we heard back from the family members how it's supposed to be conveyed back?
I'll check on, they were going to sign off, right? Or-
Right,
Yeah,
the other siblings were going to grant,
I will check with you.
If they have a preference.
right.
But
I
I
think
think Sheila's
that's-
gonna help Mr. Solway get that lined up, she said, but I'm guessing we haven't heard anything back.
We would need that before we could pass the resolution. We
No, I think the way the resolution's worded is, it says that it'll all go into effect once you actually get the signed document, right?
Okay.
So I think you can pass the resolution, they'll just never get the deed deeded over to them until they meet these requirements.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you? Like they're not even there. So I guess I'm not really sure if it matters if they've signed off yet or not, but we'll just still wait for that. I think maybe a vote on the resolution and see if they follow through with all of their plans.
She hasn't heard anything, but isn't the resolution
We were
just...
just talking about that.
Okay.
I think they
We
can vote on it.
just wanted to see you over there. Come back.
That's all right.
Get a few more steps today.
Yeah, right.
Your Fitbit on.
My only complaint about our Bob is that most of the equipment was a Fitbit.
So I entertain a motion to pass the resolution to convey the property back as set in the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Kifley to authorize the resolution on the reconveyance of the property to the Solways. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
This will probably be a roll call, but I heard all 5 ayes.
You got just a couple things you want to do, Max? We got about 3 minutes to...
Okay, minutes from January 22nd.
Move. Second. Moved by Weiss, second by Piker to approve the general minutes from January 22nd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Claims and payroll.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Kifley to approve claims and payroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
HR report.
Move. Second, Weiss.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss to approve the HR report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Sheriff's report. Move it.
Second. Moved by Kifley, second by Piker to approve the sheriff report for December 2018. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Always fun reading.
Abatements.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss to authorize the abatements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Lottery permit for Stratford Community Theater. Move it.
Second. Moved by Kifley, second by Piker to authorize the lottery permit for the Stratford Community Theater. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We set hearing date for, it's a joint Frederick City Brown County meeting for a rezone. Tentatively, well, we'll publish it next week for 2 weeks, and then they will be here at 8:45 on the 19th and the 26th.
That Spring Creek Colony?
Yes.
Yep. I move it.
Second.
Moved by Piker, second by Sutton to set the hearing date for the joint Frederick City Brown County meeting rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, approved, or appoint Scott Mike and Dave Lunson to the 2019 Homeland Security Regional Review Board.
Move. Second. Moved by Sutton, second by Pfeiffer, to appoint Scott Mites and Dave Lunsman to the 2019 Homeland Security Review Board. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have.
And we're right on schedule is Deanna with the South Dakota Department of Health quarterly report here.
He's here.
Morning.
Good morning. Hi.
Morning. Morning. And you're gonna tell us the food is crazy.
Yes, for sure. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Okay. Alrighty, reporting for October through December. The immunization program, once again, is offering free flu vaccination for preparedness exercises for 2019. So the Aberdeen Area Pod has decided to go ahead and accept that. And we will do an exercise again in the fall. The target population is college students, so we will secure 250 doses, and we will go to Northern again and vaccinate college students and volunteers, and at the same time we'll probably do a tabletop exercise for our committee members when we're sending a team over to Northern. So again, we'll have another full-scale exercise. Flu is widespread. As of January 19th, there were 979 confirmed cases, 103 hospitalizations, and 1 death. This is peak season for influenza. It is not too late to be vaccinated, so we are continuing to urge people to vaccinate if they haven't done so already. We do have a new program that we are now offering in our office. It's called the Bright Start program. It's a very intensive home visiting program that we are offering to first-time moms that income qualify. They actually will visit with moms almost on a weekly basis through the pregnancy into the postpartum period, and then again with that child up to the age of 2. We did contract with Linda Hansen, and some of you may be familiar with her. She was an Avera nurse up on the OB unit for many, many years. We have contracted with her. She is located in our office, and she has begun to see patients. Currently only seeing patients in Brown County, but once she gets her caseload established and gets some training, she will probably open that to the outlying counties as well. So we're glad to have her in the office. Any questions?
Is the flu vaccine efficient this year?
Right now, I don't think that word is out yet. We don't know. All the cases, I think that they've confirmed, except for 2 of them have been influenza A, so it's just kind of a matter of time before we'll know how effective the vaccine is. But better than nothing at all, of course.
That Bright Start program, is that getting revamped? Because that's like 20 years old.
Oh, it's been around forever, yeah. And it's called the Nurse Family Partnership, I think, in some of the other states surrounding us. So the name of it in South Dakota is Bright Start. It is located in Huron, Sisseton, and over West River already, and it has been in the state for a number of years. We've just recently gotten the funding to have it here in Aberdeen.
Is that through state or federal?
Federal. Yep. And she's not a state employee, but she is located in our office. Yep. Any other
Is there
questions?
any part of the state that has more flu cases than others, or is it just pretty general all the way through the state?
They don't give it, they just do statewide numbers. Yeah, it's hard to say. They will identify the hospitalizations and the deaths per county, but cases, it'll be more towards the end of the year where you'll know where all the individual cases are at. Yeah. Anything else?
You're busy as usual.
Yeah, we are. Another flu shot this time of year.
Keep everybody
Okay.
warm.
Exactly. Stay warm. I'll see you in 3 months.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Mr. Mike Scott.
You ready?
Yes, we're a minute early, but I think we can live with that, can't
You
we?
tell us, are we ready?
I'm sure you're ready. Nothing major this morning. Well, as you know, we got a little bit of snow, so we got some people that would like to try some sledding at the landfill, so that's what I'm here for, to get that approval. So,
You don't have a problem with it?
I don't. I'm going to be on site. It's actually our church youth group, so talk to Chris. We've got a liability waiver for the kids to sign, adults to sign, and,
So is it only for special groups, not open to public, or can anybody come?
I guess we go case by case. I don't really want to open it up to the public because I
Sure.
can't, I've got to be able to control it
Yeah.
somehow. So,
And they bring their own sleds and
on sleds,
away we go.
away we go. So it should be, we're 30 degrees on Saturday, so we should be good.
This is just a one-time event.
We're on one-time event for right
Okay.
now, till we see how things go and what we've got. So I guess as we move forward, if other groups want to give it a try, we'll see how it goes. So I think it should be fun.
Given the lack of hills in Brown County, I would move approval if you need a motion.
Second.
Multi-use facility.
That's right.
Motion by Sutton, second by Kipling to authorize a, sledding permit for the landfill? Is that what we want to call it?
Chris, what do you think?
Permission?
Like permission, yeah.
Just commission approval.
Okay, all in favor?
Oh,
I just need a copy of your permit that you're having them sign, or,
Waiver?
okay.
All right.
All in favor? I never
Aye.
heard.
Aye.
Opposed?
Anybody that
We're
wants
good
to
go.
come on, come out, you're welcome. Just one other thing, our permit renewal, it's in there in the 4 books. We just need approval to sign and get that sent in. So,
You can't protect with graphic letters.
you know, I left that up to Lee.
Move approval.
second. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I gotta admit, I didn't read it all.
Moved by Sutton, second by Kipling to authorize the chair to sign the, permit renewal
Always
for
for
landfill?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, just an update on some equipment. Our payloader that we ordered last year, probably in July, is finally here. So we'll be putting that to use here shortly. We will be going, I'll be coming to you here next week for, we'll be looking at purchasing a new Bomag landfill compactor, or a compactor, I guess. Our current machines have over 10,000 hours on them, and it's time to get rid of them, so.
Was there a delivery date on that, payloader?
Loader?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the end of December, but
So is there any,
It's pretty close.
there are no penalties for a month late.
what brand?
Volvo, a 120. So yeah, it's in the shop and everything's ready to go, so.
You wanna go try it out?
Yep. Got some snow we can move.
I think we're gonna need-
Loads of hay we need to get to.
I think we're gonna need a snow blower pretty quick, so.
Well, this one's got the hay gravel on it for you.
All right, that's about all I got.
All right.
Any questions?
Stay warm, stay
I know we
safe.
got the fire station to talk about here yet, but,
I gotta get with you on that. I met with, the Jacobs, and they've kinda got an alternative plan, but I wanna run it by you first. You're the landfill manager, so I'm not gonna
Okay.
go down that road, so I
Yep,
just need to
that's
get with
fine.
you one day. I'll swing out, shop out there if you're there and kinda
yep,
tell
just give
you
me a
what-
holler.
So,
All right?
You'll find him sledding.
I'm gonna send the kids down first.
You'll groom the slopes.
All right, we'll let you know how it goes. Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
thanks, Mike.
Bring your own car hood.
All right.
Next item, we're another minute early, but I think we can, Gene gets here. Gene Leskey with the Director of Equalization, discuss Department of Revenue pilot program.
Morning.
Morning. We've been contacted a few different times from Department of Revenue, whether we'd be interested in taking on a pilot program if that were to come into play. I think you kind of brought that up, and I think you've had some discussion about that. Still kind of all depends on Senate Bill 4. Senate Bill 4 actually would, what it does is has STSU classifies soils into crop and non-crop based on highest and best use, or actual use, or most probable use, or whatever you have there. And then, once that's done, they will issue new Table 1s to the counties, or at least to pilot counties, to see how the new tables versus our old tables will match up on our soil surveys. Right now, Senate Bill 4 is first going to be heard in committee tomorrow, so it's still kind of in the works here, and you know, kind of, when I talked to Leslie Coyle and some of those at Revenue, they're kind of in a hurry to get pilot programs on board. When I talked to Russ Hansen, he says we're kind of getting the cart ahead of the horse, because there's a lot of things need to get done before this even comes into play. So first off, we'll see how Senate Bill 4 turns out. What it actually does, like I said, it has SDSU give the soils. It also cleans up some of the stuff that's in the productivity program as is now. Gets rid of those wordage of the 10% cap, 25% cap, some of those things as it was being implemented and coming in, kind of cleans up some obsolete languages, or obsolete language and such. And then if it does pass, it would need to be amended to account for to assign pilot programs to certain counties. So in the for the time being, we're kind of on a wait and see, but we are certainly on the agenda, on the list as one of the counties interested in taking part in it. Few snags, I guess, in Pier regarding Senate Bill 4 is that as they get to looking at counties, what they have available and what's mandated of counties as far as putting on new soils, there's at least 10 counties in the state that don't even have GIS capabilities to put the NRCS soils over, layer on any kind of mapping. So, there's some things that before this gets going too far are going to have to be hammered out before the pilot program's even in play. But it's probably going to go through this spring. If it does, and we're on board, the pilot program will probably run this summer. They're wanting to get it taken care of so that there's answers and things by, they're thinking September or October, to try to get new table ones out to each county. In the meantime, like I said, we're on the list. We're one of the ideal counties they're looking for. We're relatively big. We're pretty diverse. We can look at what the spectrum is over, from real good soil to poor soil to hills to, we got a little bit of everything to compare. We're to that end, we're in pretty good shape. We have the people in-house that can get this up and running pretty good. We have GIS in-house. Scott's had some contact with some folks there, or somebody there that's at least trying to get some information.
Yeah, an intern called me last week and was trying to find out some software questions. I'm not sure she quite understood what she was asking. Anyhow, there's been some contact from the state. I don't see why we shouldn't be able to support this project. There's a lot of variables. I don't know yet whether it'll be a 2-hour project, a 2-week project, or a 2-month project. So once we know those things, then we'll be able to support it and get it done.
And that's kind of where we're at too. Once we do take this on, we really have no idea how big of a project it is. We want to run the look at our soils with the adjustments we have on them. Right now, we currently have about $130 million worth of adjustments we're making to our soil survey. They want to look at all of our soils currently, our new table with current soils with all the adjustments taken off, which we would actually have to do ourselves, so that they can compare, with, without, and then the new tables. And then they're talking about giving us 3 different tables, one with highest and best use, one with most probable, one with actual use that they would like us to build in and compare. So, like I said, at this point, I'm not sure how much this is done that we can just upload into a system. I'm not sure how much is actually going to be data entry. I'm not sure of a lot of things other than we are one of the counties they would like to have do it, and I know we're certainly interested in taking it on. I just, there's a lot of questions and everything to that end. Mr. Weiss, Mr. Sutton, kind of had some discussions with some of the folks in Pier that are sort of running the show here, maybe know more about it than I do. But
I don't know if I know more than you know, but when I talked to Leslie last week on a committee hearing that had been held in Pier, she said they were looking for pilot counties and volunteers, and I think it would be good information, you know, depending on what hoops we have to jump through and what potential costs might be there. But I think it would be good to throw our name in the hat as a volunteer to get that information going down the. I'm looking at a graph here that was provided to the interim committee last summer and last fall, and under the most probable use, Brown County would, the total assessment would go up about 1%, and if you use the actual use method, Brown County would actually go down 15%. So there's, you know, that's what the test, or this pilot program would determine, you know, based on the new numbers. And I think the new numbers could offer some valuable information going forward.
In the perfect world, the pilot study and the new, well, the soil survey, or the table one we have is, right now, is from 1988. So since 1988, we've gone through a 20-year wet cycle and all kinds of things. We, you know, when I got here 20 years ago even, you know, you go out and drive out in the country and there's a lot of wheat fields and sunflowers and things like that. You can't find a sunflower in the county anymore. A lot of different things have changed since that 1988 soil survey, or not soil survey, but at least since the table. So, you know, we've made some adjustments that, you know, coincide probably with ag practices, with our probably 20-year wet cycle we've come through and some of that kind of thing. So hopefully if there is a new table one comes through, it matches a lot closer to what our live is now with our adjustments than it did to our original that hasn't been adjusted. But that's, you know, just some of the things that I guess we'll see when it, you know, how it is when it happens. But yeah, in the meantime, you know, like I said, we've been contacted. We've let them know that we're interested. They seem to be very, very aware that we're an interested county, and again, we're kind of waiting on what happens with Senate Bill 4.
There's lots of moving pieces to this, and I was a little surprised at how Senate Bill 4 came through, but essentially it's there as a conversation starter to try and move the ball forward. Lots of different issues. There's different versions of Table 1s that are out there, so there's a lack of consistency there. Notwithstanding plenty of conversation about shortcomings and stuff, this is designed to get us to a more dynamic table that's more reactive, as opposed to one that you're, you know, using that's got 20-year-old data or even older,
30
you know. So at least that way, the open idea is, you know, that you've got more accurate, consistent, current dynamic data to start with on the front end of those kinds of things. And then there's plenty of conceptual thoughts about which method to crunch those numbers is going to be most effective. So in the conversations I've had through the committee and so forth, being cautious, but Brown County is absolutely well positioned under the circumstances with the level of technology and expertise that we have, and then just the history of the department providing good statistical analysis and information, which I've appreciated. It's helped me, and then I've shared with some of the others that they've been pleasantly surprised to say, you know, we thought it was doing this. Here you've actually shown us what it's done. So Gene in your office and done a good job with that and continue to do that, providing good information as well as, you know, good overall analysis of that. So I think it would be hugely important for us, depending on how it comes through, but I don't think they're going to, you know, make a change immediately. They, you know, they really can't, but the idea is to put it out there and say, okay, here's where we think we're going with this. And there'll be some conversation and some amendments to say that, you know, we need to have this studied for a year or two. And I think Brown County is very well positioned to be able to participate on a proactive basis with that. So
Again, he's talking about counties that don't have GIS capabilities that, you know, so there's, once this is implemented and new tables for everybody, there are counties that are going to have to get some IT stuff up to date in order to implement the process. Here, like I said, we have, you know, Scott can handle pretty much everything on our GIS situation. our BC Connect can handle live values plus probably up to as many test values as we want to put in there. So, we're in a good spot to do, to run tests or run data out of. Here again, if it's one of the things that when they went down in one summer, I'm not sure how big of a project they're asking us to take on. So,
Well, once it goes to implementation, and that's a year or two off, if then, a combination of finding partners, whether it's neighboring counties and or planning districts that can help those counties that don't have those capabilities, for the implementation is something, been discussed and recognized will have to be part of that. There wasn't anything concrete, but there was also a recognition that there'll be an investment in time and resources that they're going to need to budget, some compensation for those that do participate. But I think it's important that we are in on it if we possibly can be, if that's the route they're going to go.
How many pilot counties are they talking about? 5?
I'm not sure if they even have a number in
handful.
mind.
5, 4, 5.
4 to 6.
Is there any part of the bill that talks about any assistance as far as financial assistance? Nothing.
Nothing. Pretty much all Senate Bill 4. That's wrong. Pretty much all Senate Bill 4 does is crosses out the portion that says the Director of Equalization will classify soil types, and that process will be replaced by SDSU, and the rest is pretty much striking out other codified law regarding the limitation of 10% and 25% as it was implemented, and various things like that. There's a lot of the bill is just repealing old stuff and adding about one line of new legislation regarding who actually classifies soil types.
Well, SB4 as it was presented is really the stripped down model. There's definitely more that needs to go in there, and that's been part of the conversation that I put forward is we need to be careful about how much we leave to the Department of Revenue to use as administrative rule discretion. That's part of what's gotten us into trouble in the past, perhaps unforeseen circumstances, but being careful about those things that we can anticipate that it's pretty well clearly understood, right, wrong, or indifferent, what's codified and what's left to be interpreted as administrative rules for things like that. And then one of the concerns I've expressed and will continue to express is that going to this new model puts probabilities on those classifications, and so where it's pretty clear cut, you've got a high percentage of probability, it's pretty easy to figure out and determine what it's supposed to be, but there's expected to be an area where local discretion is anticipated to be used, and my whole point with that conversation is that Department of Revenue doesn't have a good history of supporting locals when they use that discretion, and that needs to change if that's where we're going.
Correct. Class 4, particularly Class 4 soils, which kind of can fall into either category.
Right.
West of the river, even Class 3 soils, a lot of times are used as non-crop land as opposed to crop land, as far as the highest and best and some of that kind of things that kind of what they're trying to do is support some of the local decision making that directors of equalization have been making anyway, or either support it or prove it wrong, or one way or the other, not have us kind of hanging out here on our own, but still not actually doing the assessment from peer. And there's kind of that fine line that this is trying to clear up some language one way or the other. What does peer control? What does the equalization director control?
Well, if we're trying to stay away from market value and go to a variation of income, which is also one of the methods that you can use for commercial property as well, getting better information and more current information, I think, is a good thing. You just got to be careful what it is going in, because if it's not good information going in, it certainly isn't going to be good coming out.
But pretty much all I know. We're on the list as far as, unless, there's any reason not to be. We've kind of put our name in the hat, says we're interested in being one of the pilot counties, and, we are, probably one that's taken the most action as far as at least inquiring about it, so if it happens, we'll be the chosen one over here.
Well, I think it's important to be on the front end of it, if at all possible.
I say go for it.
Absolutely.
I agree.
You get more information, it doesn't mean they're gonna go forward with anything, right? It's just
Right.
information.
Right.
I think it's long overdue.
Yeah.
Long overdue.
Well, that's one of the concerns from the legislative point of view on it is, conceptually, you've got lots of good ideas and so forth, but unless you've got good statistics where you can actually make an honest-to-God comparison. Sometimes hunches are pretty good, but it's, as important as this is to get it right, especially in the details, I think it's really important, that we have this step in the process. So we'll see what they do legislatively, but to actually, be able to statistically quantify just exactly what the impact is going to be, I think is hugely important, and we definitely want to be in on that if possible.
Right.
Do all the counties have to use the old soil survey from '88? Is that what South Dakota's on?
There's various, whenever they were done, there's, Spink County's is only about 10 years old or so. Ours is one of the older ones at 30 years old, and there again,
There's different versions out there.
and there's different versions out there. Or different versions, or
Different dates.
different times,
Yep.
of time. Some Spink County's was done pretty much after, or as this wet cycle was kind of coming to an end, or it may be the height of it. Ours was done when, little puddles that hold water now probably growing our best corn, or maybe our best wheat, or something at, 30 years ago that you never see anymore. Right now they're growing our best cattails.
1987, Warren Schultz was the guy that, with the Soil Conservation Services, the one that actually implemented. I remember he was upstairs in the old post office up above the federal building, and that's when it was implemented,
So how did
1987.
Spink get theirs new, or did they pay somebody to redo it? Can you do that?
Department of Revenue, as they've gotten them done, they've distributed them around to the different counties, and ours has kind of always been at the end of the line, just has never, we've asked for a new table one for as long as I've been here.
They were in the process of updating them on an attrition basis, and now that's essentially been put on hold now that they've been doing this research and putting this database together at SDSU. And so there's new information out there, but rather than implementing it and making that change to the whole system, they decided to put that on hold and see what's going to happen with this new dynamic database.
One thing, Dr. Elliott, I don't know if you had a chance to see the website at all, but one that he came across or mentioned, and I agree wholeheartly with, is that soil survey is an awful way to determine highest and best use. Our office all along has claimed that the highest and best use of a parcel is different than the highest and best use of the components of the parcel. And one of the discussions we'll have this afternoon a little bit. But, so we really have a hard time with some of our adjustments that we make, getting them past Department of Revenue, saying that they think that we're adjusting for management decisions and actual use and some of those things when I'm claiming the highest and best use. And if we can get our townships to back up our decision, townships carry a lot more weight than I do when I go to Department of Revenue and say that this is the situation. Our office all along has believed that, not actually used all the time, because not everybody uses their parcel at its highest and best use, but who's going to know highest and best use of a parcel better than the property owner? Just the fact that there may be, like that example I showed you, 30 acres of crop-breeded soil on a quarter of land, but it's pieced out in different parts, doesn't mean that that's its highest and best use.
Right.
You know, the guy farming that's not gonna go in and bust out 10 acres here and 4 acres here and 7 acres here on a quarter, yet the state has determined those are crop-rated soils and therefore should be assessed as crop-rated value with top, off the top dollar of crop-rated. And that's where one of those things most probable use would come into play. I'm still not an advocate of actual use in that they're again not always, you know, actual use isn't always the highest and best use, but actual use indicates highest and best use quite frequently, and I think, you know, I think we put a lot of stock in property owners and township boards coming to us and saying, you know, that may be crop rated or parts of that may be crop rated, but there's nobody going to crop that under normal farming situations. And like I said, if the township makes that adjustment, you can get it through Department of Revenue a lot easier. And if the new soil tables help out with that discussion, I'm all about it.
Sounds good. Well, do you have did you get a lot of responses for this afternoon's meeting?
You know, it's been pretty quiet. Probably have, and I don't know if people are going to show up to have an RSVP, but I probably haven't heard from more than a dozen townships. So
1 or 1:30?
1:30.
1:30.
1:30. Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your willingness to participate.
Next on our agenda, we have Scott Heinz, Director of Emergency Management, Homeland Security Representative.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Busy night the other night.
It was busy. We had some wonderful folks that did a wonderful job.
Yeah. A little dangerous for one of you.
It was. We had quite a few calls of, why aren't you coming to get me, and all this kind of stuff, and, you know, we just explained to the folks, hey, the plans are in place and the equipment's in place, we can't see to come and get you is the problem. So, as soon as that improves, we'll be knocking on your car window, but until then, stay put, so. This is a copy of the current agreement that's, as you can see, has been in place since 93 or 83 or something, maybe Dennis remembers that his name's on it, to allow our office, the EM office, to have priority over the community room for the Emergency Operations Center. Kent and I have been talking since we moved over to the other building, and our Emergency Operations Center and stuff will be at the new building now, that we would like to continue to have this agreement in place with a few updates to add communications onto this, so that the community room here will be our backup bug out location, which we are both required to have. We've had one of the fire stations currently as our backup, and not that it's a bad place or anything, but moving back over here to our backup location and using the community center would be in our best interest, because it is in our control. It is, you know, our wiring, our phone system, all that kind of stuff, which is a little easier for us to control and to upkeep and all that kind of stuff. So, like I said, I don't know what the plans are since we've kind of moved out of there, but we would really like to keep something type of agreement in place that if we would have to bug out or move over here or add something for a large incident, that we could rely on the community center. So with your permission, like I said, I'd like to update this document to include communications in here, not just emergency management, and then we'll go through the approval process and we need to.
What he's saying here too is kind of a twist on what we're doing now in the new community or communications building we're in, having the EOC and dispatch close together. So essentially by doing this, we still have the same functionality we would have there over here as a backup situation for us. So
we are leaving, you know, our my radio room, those communication stuff in there and stuff like that, and you know, we'd be able to set up computers or workstations in there. It's all wired right now for Ken's stuff or my stuff or whatever it be. So this actually makes a pretty good option for our bug out plans to be able to say, hey, if this is where we need to go, and like I said, you need to be able to tell the state that this is what, you know, where we're going if something would happen in the other building or
It gives you a level of redundancy that's just very obvious, practical, and
then
necessary and required, which we know is really important. in
That's the other
everything
thing, when
you
we
do.
talked to Paul in the IT department, you know, he was all in favor, because again, our stuff it's in our control, you know, we can control it.
Infrastructure already there, so.
You're just talking about the hookups, we're not gonna have a workstation here right now for a backup. It's
No,
just ready to go.
We probably have to roll things over like just a plain old telephone, you know, so yeah, we go into, some of it would be pen and paper to do what we have to do for backup, but
But you're not scrambling for a location and trying to figure out the logistics and all the rest of
We
that
could-
stuff.
we
It's
could
pretty much,
function.
this is the old home, we know what we're doing here.
yeah.
Yeah, and the community center, you know, we did a big project, I don't know, 8-9 years ago to do the wiring, update the wiring and stuff, so all that's, you know, all that's here. Again, it's a matter of bringing phones in and plugging them in versus going, okay, where do we gotta get this from?
So this
you
is
know?
just updating and keeping
So-
it formal, that's...
Yep, just kind of like I said, updating it and including Kent and the communications center in this agreement instead of just the EOC, so. If you're okay with that, like I said, we will, I'll get this typed up, a new format, and you can run it through just,
Yeah, like Chris, have a look at it, which I know you will, so. Good
Yep.
plan.
Good plan, yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
alrighty,
Thank you, John.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Be safe out there.
All right, thank you.
Next item on the agenda, we have a discussion of human resource position.
Morning, Kathy.
What are the thoughts? Has anybody had time to think about it, or what are...
I guess I had a request regarding your discussion on human resources. One thing I would like to see is the wages, a portion of them redirected to the auditor's office. We're taking over the payroll and to compensate that employee. Historically, the payroll's always been a chief deputy or at a chief deputy wage, and I would like that difference allocated back to the auditor's office. And I think we have staff internally that have the competency and the knowledge to get the payroll done. As far as that, I mean, what else? I really don't care. I just want that part of your discussion.
Do we have the job description, or I guess I haven't had a chance to follow up?
I guess that was my next question.
For the possibility of...
What do we call in HR and what do we call in payroll? I think that's where it's at right now, and
Part of the distinction, yeah, because there's, the benefits need to be handled, all the enrollments, you know, all the rest of those kinds of things, and then the compensation component of that as well, to make sure that that gets handled appropriately going forward, and how those duties are going to be handled.
I had two questions written down. Who updates Sundial with salary changes, etc., and who updates Encode with the salary changes, etc., until an interface is complete and tested?
that would be someone new that would be hired for the position as human resources, maybe. I mean, I'm just questioning if that would be, rather than the person that Kathy's talking about, I don't know. This has always been the question, but to me, HR is somebody that handles all the personal relationships with the employees, the grievances, the updates, the salary increases, and those information gets put into Sundial, or if it's interface, however, that person I see as HR directs it into you as payroll, you run the checks, you pay the vendors, you pay the 195, is that what it was for the IRS, the 941s? All that stuff is paid out of the auditor once that payroll is complete, because that information all came out of Encode, so those numbers would all be in that area that the auditor is doing his payroll. Now, does that make sense, or is there something I'm missing on it? I guess, I'm not a payroll expert by any means, but I guess that's what I would see as somebody that would be in charge of the information that is correct in Sundial, that payroll can be curated accurately.
So you're saying the answer to Max's questions, our HR puts all that stuff in.
Right.
Payroll, which will now be in auditor, just runs it. Runs the reports, runs the...
Right.
That was my understanding several weeks ago.
Because that's a function, an auditing function, a payroll function, or
Okay, and we're all on the same page of that.
because that should be part of HR, I would think, because you're making, executing the determination of who's entitled to what benefits, what pay scale, what circumstances for vacation and all the rest of those kinds of things, making sure that, the appropriate deductions are being channeled properly.
The auditor's office would need access to Sundial though, because, okay, everything is done to a certain point, and then the auditor's office will need access to print those reports out to enter into Encode in the interim until the interface is done. And my goal this week is to do the payroll out of the auditor's office, just to make sure we have access to everything we need to start at point A and continue into part B.
So we need to direct Paul to allow access to Sundial by the designated people in your office, whether that's Jeanette, Sarah, or whoever.
Paul had sent an email out earlier in the week asking for us to respond to that request, if we should grant him permission. And I told Paul they need to have access to it, they can't do without it, so, but I was just a lone vote, so that's why it's up for discussion, is that if that's what has to be done, we need to call Paul shortly here and say, hey, we need to have this access for the auditor's office to get into that Sundial.
Because what is the deadline for departments now? It's changed.
Well, it's 5 o'clock except for the 24/7 sheriff jail
On Monday.
on Monday.
Yeah, so everything should be there now.
Yeah, most of them were there last night at 4, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, we just need to get a hold of Paul and direct him to allow access to the designated
So we can
personnel.
print them out and get started.
So
And
you say
And I
designated,
did
how
print
many
them
people?
out yesterday,
Just
the ones that were
Jeanette or
there.
Sarah, or two, one, or
Who do you need
Jeanette
to
and
have
Sarah.
it?
two?
Jeanette and
Okay.
Sarah, okay. Well,
But going forward, we need to come to a consensus that our intention is to have a dedicated HR person with the skills and the training and the background with clearly understood duties. And that we need to put the job description together, determine a salary range, advertise, and move forward with getting that position filled.
Could we take a look at the job description when we advertised last time to
Sure.
determine what tweaks need to be
The only
made?
reason I didn't send them out is I didn't know what your intentions were
Yep.
as far as part-time, full-time, whatever.
Because
and-
before it was an HR assistant, payroll specialist, I
Right.
believe, so now it would be more just of an HR
So are we
assistant.
still talking the 19 and a half hours? Are we talking the current 20 to 30 hours? I mean, that's what has to be decided.
It still brings up the point. I mean, we are taking half of the position with no extra help.
That's why it should be a combination, HR and helping in the auditor's office.
Now that,
Well, you're anticipating that that's a function that you can do with some reasonable compensation.
The payroll?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
guess, yeah, well, some,
That-
during some parts of the year, it will be more of a challenge. For example, during like the 2020 general election, it'll be a stretch to get the payroll done. But I think holistically, we can handle it most of the year. We might just be on overtime, or I'll be staying late to help pick up slack in the office or something like that. But yeah, with the extra compensation and the interface, that's what's also critical here
Right.
as far as us being able to get it done on time. Yeah.
Yeah.
With
keep
the
in mind
interface,
though
the
that
compensation.
Sundial has to be tweaked a little bit more before that interface is going to work.
Yeah, the way I kind of see the interface is we'll be able to approve the sundial, audit that, make sure it's correct, and then the auditor's office will authorize the interface to proceed every single payroll. It won't just be automatic, an employee enters their hours, nobody looks at it, and it goes straight into the accounting. There'll be like a two-step, we check the sundial, then we approve it to go into Encode, and then we check the Encode to make sure it matches before we hit send to the bank. That's kind of how I saw it working.
But rather
I
than
haven't met
having,
with Paul, but-
rather than having to recode all of that in manually.
Yeah,
Once
There's
it-
no
once it's been-
recoding, it's just entering the hours.
just
Right.
making sure that all the coding was done right the first time. So we'll have that internal control still that we need someone to double check.
So I think we need to
Keep
take
in
a look at...
mind that sundial is just a time clock.
Yep.
And one thing the auditor's office will do, I guess, I don't know about Max, but starting in March, is when we know there is a step increase, we'll double check sundial and we'll double check encode before we hit proceed. And that was a step we were missing when it was outsourced, and so we'll also have that internal control back. And once we have access to it with approval from Gary's office, we could just make the quick change and then send it to the bank, you know.
Yep. Because it isn't as if there's 20 or 30 step increases. Usually there's
No, it's
just
a handful
small
every-
handful. Easy
Yeah.
to
We had 5
document, yeah.
people that the rate wasn't changed last payroll.
That's because we
Sundial,
don't
but it
have
wasn't
checks and balances.
One or the other, half and half.
Because up
Some
till
was
now, we
changed to
haven't had
sundial.
the checks and balances that we will have going forward.
We need
Well,
to
I
take a
mean-
look at that, the
Is-
job description of the payroll person, what it was when we just had, did we at one point just have HR, or has it always been payroll HR?
No, it was payroll and HR, except for the one position when Patty came on board, then that didn't have payroll, but then payroll got added anyway, so.
And then for a while, you picked up HR, and it was HR commission assistant. So I would like to see the job description for all those, so we can take a look and say who's doing what here. Yeah.
You guys have sort of alluded to sharing an employee that we were talking about. My only concern is, I'm on board and open to however you guys want to proceed with this. My needs in the role of sharing an employee would be my authority as county auditor to hire and fire at will. If they're working in my office under my authority and I'm responsible for the actions they take, I would like them to be my employees shared with Gary, so I still keep that authority. Especially if they help out during elections and come a time like that, I would like to keep some of that authority.
Who do you propose to be the backup for the HR portion?
Well, we can't take on everything. This was the extra employee added that we split the salary and split the time with. So it would be a new person under this possible scenario. Because there's no way we can also take on human resources.
Wouldn't Gary be the backup person for the HR portion of it?
I guess I'm not sure what we're exactly talking about anymore.
That's kind of the problem we got into, is when HR is either on vacation or sick, we have nobody to back us that has the true experience of an HR person. So if you're going to have an HR, you need a replacement that has just as much capacity to fill that position as the one that you hire for. Because with only one person, we end up in this problem where somebody's sick or they go on 2 weeks vacation. Well, who's going to do payroll? Let's grab this person. Let's go grab that person. It gets to be a nightmare. You need 2 capable people of doing this HR at all times.
Doing HR or payroll?
HR putting, because...
HR won't do payroll. We'll have no...
Yeah, okay, so we have an exit interview and our HR person's on 2 weeks vacation. Who's going to do it?
No, that's why we need an assistant HR. We need a
That's
full-time and an
My
assistant
point, you need
HR
2
person.
of those people in that department to
But
handle
don't throw
those...
payroll into that scenario.
I said HR.
Right, right.
No, you definitely need 2 HR people to back each other, because if one HR is gone, who's going to put the information in? Who's going to put the salary increases? That person's gone for 2 weeks. You need somebody that's capable of transferring that sundial information over to the payroll.
I guess my opinion probably doesn't matter, but my opinion is somebody that's capable of transferring that, but I wouldn't say they're the equivalent of the HR person and capable and trained to do what HR does, because that person's pretty rare. An HR person that's actually trained up on all of the HR laws and all of that, you're not going to find 2 of them, and if you are, you're going to be paying out the nose for it.
It seems to me, like if it's going to be HR and payroll in the auditor's office, if we're moving that direction, then it should be someone else in that office that should have the follow-up to do basically what we were talking about there. You know, just
I think you want a
rather than have it-
standalone HR office with 1 full-time HR person for sure. That's what I've always thought. I think that's what every state's attorney ever thinks, because then all of a sudden the HR stuff gets dumped on us and we have no training on any of that and don't...
The problem is you can't you can't keep that person busy enough on a part-time position. On a full-time position, you can't, I don't think you can keep them busy enough, can you?
An HR person?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Well,
that
I mean,
would be a problem.
You know what other counties have for HR, an HR office, and we're the 4th largest county, and we don't have one.
So has that been a problem in the past, as far as keeping an HR person fully occupied, busy? Because something was mentioned about part-time or 19 and a half hours for HR, so now we're talking about a full-time HR person. Is that person going to be kept busy for 40 hours a week?
Well, I think there's plenty of appropriate things that can, could, and should be done that aren't being done.
I think the question becomes, do you have a full-time HR person? Does that mean you still have a part-time commission assistant? And then the part-time HR person? Because currently we have part-time HR, which is Gary, who's also part-time commission assistant, and then Patty's position. Do you create one full-time and one part-time out of those 3 part-times? I don't know. That's what you need to discuss.
And Gary's brought up the point too, there needs to be a level of autonomy for the HR position because they're in a unique situation in the relationships that they have to maintain and the confidentiality and so forth. And I think that's a position we need to fill, or at least discuss. You know, I think we need to get those job descriptions circulated to us for us to have conversation, review, and help clarify some of that, and move forward with putting out an application. Potential, depending on, you know, it takes one right individual, like, you know, Chris said, and you may find an individual who's interested in 20, 30 hours a week, or you might find somebody who's interested in full-time and maintain some flexibility in how you want to approach that, depending on the talents, you know, that present themselves when you get applications come in, when we get to that point. And then, you know, if and when you get that position filled appropriately, we'll clearly define what you need going forward for backup and the rest of that kind of stuff, and work through that. But it's going to be a step at a time. You can have an ideal of what you'd like to see happen, and then reality sets in. But I think we need to get that job description squared up with what those duties actually are, put a salary range together, and see what kind of opportunities there are out there for appropriately talented people to move forward.
Do you advertise it as full-time, Mike?
I think you advertise it as full-time, and that would be the intent, but you also remain open and flexible if, you know, the best candidate comes in and says, you know, I can do this and I'd be happy to do it, but I don't quite want full-time. But I think the ideal would be for a full-time position. There are things that we should be doing from training and loss control, as well as, you know, things that aren't getting done right now when it comes to benefits and following up on things, you know, like HSAs and all the rest of those kind of benefits that we can, could, and should be doing a better job of. So that would be my preference, is to see those job descriptions circulated to the commission.
I can get those out to you today.
We put some notes together and get our heads together and
Yeah.
get moving on that.
And I would look at, what county did I mention just hired full-time? I think it's Lincoln County.
Lincoln, yep.
I'd look at their previous job description too.
That's a good point.
Because they were piggybacking with Minnehaha
They were
prior.
contracting with Minnehaha,
Right, right.
now they just, I think, just last month. they
Took it in
hired-
themselves.
Right.
Yep.
All right.
Start with the job descriptions.
Sounds good.
And then the question will still be, what do you do with Patty's position? What do you do with commission assistant? And what do you do with the extra workload the auditor's office is taking?
Right.
I need to look at all those job descriptions.
I guess, I know it's not really my place right now, but I do have a small restructuring of the office I was considering in order to manage this additional workload. And I don't know if you guys would be interested in seeing that as part of what you want to do with going forward with the wages as part of your consideration for the human resource position.
Well, that's something that Kathy presents next week with the full-time HR description.
If that works. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. I don't know, any insight that you've got on how to try and improve the processes, I think we definitely want to hear.
Well, it really doesn't have much to do with the human resource process, it's just
Right.
restructuring the auditor's office and how I will be distributing the wages and stuff like that.
Okay. Good.
Put it on next
All
week's
right,
agenda.
get that out.
Okay.
That won't work for me, actually.
That's fine.
I'm out of town every Tuesday until March, so.
You can email it to us. Sure. We'll discuss.
That'll work. Anything else regarding that? We'll start down that avenue and see what's it develops. Good plan. Gary, anything else?
The only other thing I was going to mention, the sheriff wanted me to just let you know that they've moved the deputies to 10-hour shifts now too, like the jail, so that'll be another big change on the Sundial side. And we're getting quite a list of some major changes to do on the Sundial program, and that'll be another one, so just to make you aware of that.
When was the last time they changed, or is this just a change that's just taking place now, or we've
Well,
been...
now that, because you'll have all the, getting rid of all the RAM stuff that was added, plus this jail deputies things, plus any other policy type things that may or may not need to be changed. So, I know he's got quite a list of things that are gonna have to be changed in that program.
Can the auditor's office be involved in these discussions so we know what's coming with Sundial?
Sure, we can set that up.
Is somebody going to send an email to Paul about the designee?
I'll call them.
Okay.
Put on here.
Sounds good.
And you want it, Sarah, and Jeanette, right? Okay. Chris, you have anything for us?
Maybe I can give you a more detailed update on ag land assessment, the Supreme Court's denial of our intermediate appeal if you want to, otherwise. So for that, executive session, otherwise, I think everyone knows that we denied, and we're going to just wait and see what the state says. If you have questions on it, we can go into executive.
I think we know where we're at on that, so I appreciate it. What else needs one? Anything else coming before the commission?
I just want to make mention of the fact that it's been at least 4 or 5 years since we've had the amount of snow that we've had this year. And in driving around, I've heard some complaints. People need to understand that it is against the law to push snow off their property into the right-of-way. And there's several areas where people are pushing it out their driveway and across the road, and then it becomes a pile on the other side of the road. And then that poses a hazard, especially when you get winds like we've had, causes drifting, and people just need to be aware that that is against the law to push their snow into the right-of-way. And
Well, it's dangerous too,
Yeah.
because they, you get a big enough, hard enough chunk out there and catch it with a wing on a motor grader, you can cause some damage too.
it hasn't been an issue for several years, but now people they're doing it out of convenience.
And they're doing it out on the township roads too.
Exactly.
I had a call last night.
Yep,
So any right-of-way is against the law of pushing any snow
into the right-of-way, correct.
In other words, push it, instead of pushing it from your driveway out into the county or township road, turn around and push it into your yard and find a place in there to dump it.
Right.
A lot more work, though.
Adam?
One thing I forgot to mention, I think I was going to be on the HR report for travel for next week, but now it got pushed back. It actually got pushed forward to Monday. It's Senate Bill 67 is the Juvenile Justice Reform Bill that goes to committee on Monday morning. Oh, was it last week's, Gary? So you can disregard that. It'll actually be on next week's HR report. Myself and Carly will be traveling to Pierre to testify at committee on that. It also matches up with the same time that I'm in Pierre for the state's attorney board anyway, so Carly will just
What's the
ride
date
with
on
me.
that?
February, Monday. Is it the 5th?
Fourth.
I'm sorry, so February 5th at 7:45 it's in committee.
So she'd leave the 4th.
We would leave the 4th at the 2 hotel
So
rooms.
it's Carly, go to Pier, February 4th and 5th,
Yep, and then I'm driving.
and just Carly?
Nope, and myself.
Okay.
Me and Carly driving to Pier. I think Gary will put it on for next week. I haven't asked him yet, but 2 hotel rooms that night. And then back on the 5th after my board meeting. But what it is it's adding, it's an amendment to the juvenile justice bill that adds another option for a judge to adjudicate a juvenile to DOC. That new option would be the juvenile's currently on probation, they've been unsuccessful on their current probation, and the judge would also make a finding that there's no more community resources for that juvenile, so they could adjudicate the DOC from there. It may save the county's money, or it will save the county's money, because then you won't have some of the juveniles that are stuck in our system that just keep going to JDC, and there's nothing the judge can do other than sentence them to 90 days JDC. So that's why we're going to support it. I don't know, Dwayne, has anyone reached out to you for the County Commission Association to see if they
To support that bill?
Yeah.
Not yet, no. They may have reached out to Gary, our
Somebody was,
president.
okay, somebody was supposed to reach out to your
Okay,
association.
I'll follow up today, make sure they have.
They may have talked to Bob Wilcox. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's a good bill. I think the sheriffs sound like they're gonna support it, the state attorneys are supporting it. It's a small addition, but,
What's the bill number?
Senate Bill 67. We're gonna get some pushback though, because if you remember back when juvenile justice reform went into place, they sold all the state DOC facilities. Apparently there's one that has now been opened or reopened, a really old one in Sioux Falls that they've redone and brought buildings in from out of state. No one really knows about it, but apparently kids are going to DOC there.
Well, there was promises for all kinds of resources that never materialized.
Same as most Senate bills, like Senate Bill 70, all these promises never followed through it, so we'll see what happens. It's just the committee hearing next Tuesday.
First step. South Dakota County has 2 bills that we'll be dealing with. They were scheduled for hearing tomorrow, but the senator, the prime sponsor, is going to be gone. So I'll be going to appear next Wednesday for Senate Bill 65 and Senate Bill 103. 65 allows the implementation of a sales tax for county sales outside the municipalities for the construction of jails, courthouses, DOCs, whatever.
Infrastructure.
Or JDCs, I mean. And then Senate Bill 103 allows for the transfer of up to 25% of any revenue that's left at the end of the year, the fiscal year at the state level, into the big program. So those are the 2 that we're dealing with. You don't need to put that on travel. I'm not going to
You're not going to
claim
anything?
anything. I'm just, that's for information only.
Okay.
Dirk and I'll be going to testify on it. He might put in for travel, but I won't.
Okay.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. Moved by Weiss, second by Pfeiffer to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.